make it tonight and have our faculty share it among their students as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who are with us, my name is Jacqueline Napoleon. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruitment and Admissions at the Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy here at UAlbany. And as you know, we are sort of teammates with the School of Criminal Justice here academically at the university. And so we have our colleagues here from all of our master's programs, which is the Masters of Public Administration, the Masters of International Affairs, the Master of Arts in Political Science, and the Master of Arts in Criminal Justice. And so we have our faculty and our advisors here from each of those programs. And the hope is that we will be able to share some information with you today to talk not only about the academic components of the program, but about the combined degree program, which is sort of the point of this presentation, and give you some of the benefits of doing that program and the reasons why it might be a great fit for you as you move forward. And we can also answer more generally questions about the graduate program, certainly, and graduate school in general, if you have questions about that. So before I let my colleagues sort of introduce themselves, I do want to get a sense of, and you can put it either in the chat or just say it out loud, what your interests are. Which master's programs are you considering? Dayanara, what about you?
Sorry. I'm really not sure. I've been contemplating about whether I want to actually go to law school or I've been looking more into a master's program because just the idea of that is really terrifying to me. And I want to kind of weigh up my options. So
Awesome.
just here to learn.
Great. Well, that's good. Dr. Fox will will talk you out of law school imminently. Just kidding. Just kidding. We joke about that with the MPA and the MIA, frankly, have great components. The MA, there's so many good choices instead of law school. If you're just not sure, that's the way you want to go. So you'll hear a little bit about that, hopefully. Ananya? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
Oh, yeah, you got it correctly. I'm interested in the criminal justice master's program, specifically the combined master's JD program for Albany
Okay.
Law.
Okay, great. Onicia, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, you are. I'm also interested in the combined bachelor's and master's program for criminal justice.
Great, great. Mari?
Hi, sorry. I think I kind of couldn't hear a little bit in the beginning. Do you
Okay.
mind repeating the question again,
Oh,
please?
sure. We're just curious which master's degree you're thinking about, if you sort of are contemplating at this point.
Oh, well, honestly, I'm similarly to I think what the other girl might have said. I'm also applying to law schools, but I just joined because I don't know, I thought maybe I could learn a thing or two just to
Yeah.
keep options open.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you'll find some great alternatives if you're not sure law school is the way to go.
Yeah.
So, Hannah.
Hi, I'm definitely looking towards going to masters for at least criminal justice. And I kind of just wanted to see if I could be interested in a combined program. So that's why I'm here.
Great, great, awesome. And Jay. He's interested in the BA with political science. He's a political science major and is interested in the MIA. So that's great. So we'll be able to address kind of each of the programs. I think for students who are maybe thinking about law school, I think we can talk a little bit about the elements of the MIA, the MAs, and the MPA, and how some of the skills that you will build in those degrees can either serve you really well if you decide to do a law degree or a dual degree, or perhaps doing something instead of a law degree if you're interested maybe in doing something a little bit more practically focused, analysis focused in policy or budgeting or something like that. So we can make sure we talk a little bit about all of that. I do want to let everybody kind of introduce themselves. So I'll just kind of go around my screen. That way we make sure we get everybody. So as I said, I oversee all of the graduate programs within Rockefeller. And so for any of you who have questions about these, you can always start with me and I can kind of send you to the appropriate people, many of which are here who are just great resources for you. So I'll start with Dr. Fox.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Ashley Fox. I'm an associate professor at Rockefeller College in the Department of Public Administration and Policy, and I'm undergrad director for public policy. And so I advise all the students that are in the undergraduate major in public policy, but also the students that are doing the BA MPA program, the Masters in Public Administration. So welcome.
Dr. Weiss.
Hi, I'm the director of graduate studies for political science, and I'm a professor of political science focused on comparative politics. especially in Southeast Asia. And for us, it's the what I cover is the PhD and master's program in political science.
Stacy.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Ziskowski. I'm the Student Services Coordinator for the School of Criminal Justice, and I work with the students that are interested in the BA MA program as an undergrad student.
Dr. Siddiqui.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nilofer Siddiqui. I'm an assistant professor of political science, and I am also affiliated with a master's in international affairs program. And specifically, I advise students who are in the combined BA MIA program.
Dr. Warden.
Good evening, everybody. I am Lisa Warden. I'm on the faculty in the School of Criminal Justice, and I'm also the associate director for the school, which means I am largely responsible for our graduate programs and how they intersect with our undergraduate programs as well.
And Zahar.
I'm Zahar Berkovich, Director of Undergraduate Student Services for Rockefeller College, and I try to answer as many questions as I can.
Yeah, Stacy and Zahar are the gurus of advising within our departments and are both really good resources in terms of just general undergraduate stuff, but really, really great people to connect with if you're interested in pursuing the combined program. And then our faculty obviously are sort of academic scholars and can speak really well to the content areas, to the things that you're going to study within the programs. So I'll sort of start there so we can talk a little bit about what these programs are all about. Because I think they sometimes can seem sort of, sort of public service in general is a bit of a big word, and it can really encompass a lot of things. So I'm going to just share my screen briefly. There we go. Can everybody see that? Yeah. So this is just sort of a really quick bullet points before I let the faculty talk more about it, is sort of what are these degrees about? What are some of the things that you want to do? I always ask students when they talk about doing graduate school, how do you want to change the world? Because these are the degrees that can help you do that. You can impact policy, you can impact the criminal justice system, you can impact human rights. I mean, you can really be part of making the world a better place. And so there's lots of ways to do that. And we're lucky enough to have 4 different master's degrees that can really help you, make a pretty big impact in any number of ways. And so we really do prepare leaders, managers, decision makers, people who are analyzing the information and sharing it with constituents, and really making sure students know who the stakeholders are when it comes to sort of public service in any level of public sector, whether it's, local government, state government, federal government, nonprofit organizations, in the legal field, in the private sector. We have a lot of private sector students, believe it or not, within the criminal justice system on many levels, even within things like public health and social welfare. So our students really cover a lot of different areas with these degree programs, and they're very versatile. A lot of them allow students to do multiple things. You can work in a lot of different areas within, whether it's domestic or international work. And so there are a lot of options for sure. And I think a couple of things I'll just draw attention to before I let the faculty talk about more specifically their programs is that career placement is really strong, whether you continue to go on to graduate school. I know we have a couple criminal justice potential students here. I know we have students who may decide they want to go directly onto a PhD in criminal justice. We have a lot of MPA students who sort of know they want to dive right in and become, a legislative assistant or a policy analyst, or, international affairs students who know that they want to pursue the foreign service. They want to work for the UN. They want to do really interesting international work. And so it's a great place to be able to find meaningful employment or higher education. We're obviously already here. What a great value a SUNY school is, and that continues in the graduate level. And we'll talk about kind of a financial benefit of doing the combined program. Most of our students do internships, many of which are paid. So you get a true professional internship experience as part of most of our master's programs. They're required in some, recommended in others, but it really is important to have some of that meaningful experience. And we have amazing faculty, which you'll hear from shortly, and they're super accessible. They are always happy to connect with students, talk more about not even just what you're doing in the classroom, but what are some of the career options you might want to explore? What are some of the ways you can use this degree to your very best efforts? and you know where we are in the capital and what a great benefit that is as well. So so I'll sort of let our faculty talk a little bit about sort of the content areas within their programs. And perhaps Dr. Fox and Dr. Weiss and Dr. Warden can talk a little bit about, and Dr. Siddiqui can talk a little bit about, perhaps how these kinds of master's degrees can complement a JD or do instead of a JD or whatever it might be. So so I will start with Dr. Warden.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll tell you that the School of Criminal Justice is only fairly recently, for the last few years, combined with the Rockefeller College, and that was, I think, sort of a very positive development because we do share a lot of interest with the faculty and students in public administration and in political science, and as a result, we have been observing a lot more kind of crossover of students taking courses across. I mean, we're down the hall from each other, right? You can get from your place to our place and stay inside. So, so that's just some background in case you weren't familiar with that. The School of Criminal Justice was founded in 1968. It was the first graduate school of criminal justice in the country, and we have a PhD and a master's program. Now, our master's program is different from what you're looking at right now because our program does not require an internship. So things are a little bit different over here, but I'm happy to discuss with people what we do. It's a 33 credit program. There are 4 required courses that are methods and theory courses, and a capstone course that gives people a chance to really kind of finely hone their professional skills as they get ready to go out into the world. So they practice writing policy papers, they practice doing presentations, they practice looking at evaluation research, and that's what they do the very last semester. Most people, if they're full-time students, complete the program in 3 semesters, and that's pretty typical. Part-time students can take more than that. Take longer than that. That's perfectly fine with us. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here because I don't assume you can write all this stuff down as fast as I talk, but I can tell you some general issues. We are a research-oriented program in the sense that we observe many of our master's students graduate and go on to research careers or research adjacent careers. Right now, I am thinking about 5 students who I've had in classes in the past. They are alumni now, who got a master's degree, who work at a nonprofit research institute on topics involving procedural justice, policing, crime mapping. I don't know if you guys have heard about bail reform in New York lately, but done a big project out there on bail reform, and these students have been largely the research team for those issues. We do other things as well, but I just want to sort of underline that orientation as something we are known for and strong for, and we can really prepare students for doing that kind of thing. What do our master's degree students do when they graduate? Well, I started making a list, and a bunch of them are working in research. We've also had students go on to do legislative internships downtown. As everybody knows, I think we're only 3/4 of a mile from the Capitol. We've had students get, when they graduate, Excelsior fellowships, which are fast track state positions. It's like a kind of a set of agencies like working where the student or the alum at this point is given lots of exposure to how agencies really operate and what happens. We have had a number of our students continue into the PhD program, and particularly if we know that you're interested in that early in your master's program, we can actually make some coursework duplicate so that you can conserve some time if you're admitted to the MA. What else should I say here? Well, first, I'm going to tell Ananya that I owe you an email because I got one from you this morning and I haven't had a chance to respond to it. But clearly, you're someone who's interested in research. We've also had a number of our students go on to law schools from the master's program because if you choose your electives carefully, we have a pretty strong interest in law. I mentioned internships before, and we have not had a huge presence in internships historically, but that's one of the things that our current Senior Executive Director, Dana Peterson, and I are starting to stand up. And we are going to be working with some people over in Rockefeller, with Diana, with some folks, to make sure that even though it's not required, our students will get the same opportunities in the graduate level for internships as in state and local nonprofit federal agencies as the students do in the MPA. And I think I'm going to stop there. But welcome anyone who has questions about this, since there's several of you. Okay, and Anya, several of you. I will feel free to answer the questions. If we run out of time tonight, I'd be happy to sit down and talk with any of you or Zoom you or whatever works. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Warden. Dr. Weiss.
Yes. All right. So the the MA in political science, whether you do it as a combined degree or as a separate program, we've designed this as it's changed. The program has changed over the years. We've made it less structured than it used to be, just recognizing the wide range of different careers that our graduates go on to do from the master's program. So there are only 3 required courses. One is a class on political inquiry. So it's a basic kind of a scope and methods class that sets the stage for what's to come. Next is your choice of a methods class, either qualitative research methods or quantitative research methods. So this is one of, I stress this because it's one of the distinctions between the master's in political science and the master's in international affairs, or the MPA, is that if you do not want to do statistics, you can avoid them in the master's in political science. If you do like it, you're welcome to do that instead of qualitative research, or you could do both. And we used to have these sort of set tracks within the masters, but we found that we ended up customizing those enough that it made more sense to take away the set tracks. And instead I work specifically, Diana as well, with each master's student to determine what courses will best suit their career goals and their specific intellectual interests. So I refer to it sometimes as a choose your own adventure master's, because we keep things quite flexible. And then at the end, you do a capstone, which is a master's essay or thesis, which you do within the course of 1 semester. The total is 31 credits, which is 10 classes. We don't require an internship, although we're actually considering making that a requirement just because we find it to be a helpful component. But we do recommend that students, if you haven't already done some sort of internship, that you do one. We have 3 major types of internship. One would be a legislative internship. Some of you may have done this as an undergrad, in which case I probably wouldn't recommend that you do it again as a grad student, because it's kind of similar. The second would be a campaign internship, because we do have a lot of master's students who are interested in political campaigns. And the third would be the anything else internship, so long as it's related to political science. So for those, usually students are working for a state agency or for some sort of advocacy or public service organization. And there can be exceptions to that, but those are the most common positions. Some of what applies to political science is what you've just heard also for criminal justice. So this is a research university, so we have a very research active faculty. Master students who are interested in research can definitely pursue that. So we do have MA students who are using this as kind of a trial of whether they want to go on to a PhD in a more academic track or not, or who simply want the opportunity to do some serious research while they're doing a master's. So that's always a possibility. We also have students who are more practitioner focused. They want to work on campaigns or in political communications or in advocacy work with, at some sort of civil society organization, or for instance, for the state or some other level of government in policy work. And so we help you to develop those interests as well. In terms of what our students end up doing, it's honestly a really wide range. We have a number of students who go on to law school. We have a public law concentration within political science. UAlbany is somewhat unique in that regard. There aren't that many universities that have a specific concentration within political science for public law. Many will have a pre-law program, but ours is really specifically at the intersection of law and politics. So if you are thinking of law school later, we will encourage that later part, regardless of whether you do a master's or not. It's always good to think before you invest in law school. But we do have students also who go on to PhDs, either directly from the master's or otherwise. One of our master's students now has just been admitted with a full fellowship to multiple schools. He settled upon Northwestern University in Chicago. We have a lot who go on to different types of policy work, who work for different advocacy or service organizations, a lot who end up in political campaigns of various sorts. A lot who do the master's in order to teach in New York State. There are positions that require a master's, and master's in political science is a good option. or any number of other areas. And we also have a good record of placement for the Excelsior Service Fellowships, and that's really college-wide. And I think I will stop there and turn things over to the next person.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Dr. Fox next.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. So the Masters of Public Administration program, this may be a program that folks haven't really heard about. I know I didn't really know much about MPA programs when I was coming up in my undergraduate studies. So what is a Masters in Public Administration? The way I often describe it to people is it's sort of like an MBA, Master's of Business Administration, but for people who want to go into the public sector and don't necessarily want to work for big corporations. Certainly people do use their MPA to work for the private sector, so that's not ruled out, but typically people that are going through the MPA program want to work in government in some capacity, and not necessarily, it could be electoral politics, in a legislature, for instance, but it could also be all the zillions of jobs out there that are, government proper. So if, Department of Health, Department of Education, your local county office, there's all these different jobs in government that they're often quite invisible. People don't even really know that they exist, but they're out there and there's lots of them and they pay pretty well and they have good benefits. So it's, a desirable thing to want to go into. You can also pursue careers in the nonprofit sector, social service organizations, and advocacy as well. The kinds of things that we train you for in our program are maybe a little bit less on the kind of research and theoretical side and more on the applied side. So, we want to teach you core skills that you need to be a manager, for instance. So one of our concentrations is public management, and we also have a concentration in nonprofit public management. So, if you want to work for government, maybe public management is the right thing for you. If you think you want to work for a nonprofit management could be great. But then we also teach, again, more concrete skills like budgets. It's not necessarily the sexiest topic, but it turns out that knowing something about numbers and how to make a budget and how budgets work is actually really important. And it's a valuable skill that a lot of different types of agencies and organizations need and want. So we have a concentration in financial management and public economics. And we also have a concentration that's very popular in government information strategy and management. Again, people don't often think about this, but there's all the different communications that government has to do and the way that government interacts through, their websites and media and in different ways, public relations. So those are also careers you can get from the MPA. And then I personally teach in the public policy concentration, and that's one of our most popular concentrations. And so again, this has some overlap maybe with some of what you might learn in the MA program in political science, but it tends to be more on the applied side. If you want to be a policy analyst, if you want to go work for a think tank, if you want to do policy research, it's a wide variety of different careers that you can do with it. I guess just touching on a few things that other people raised, there is an internship requirement because we very much believe that, you should apply what you do to the real world. This is very much an applied degree. Also, though, a lot of our students are full-time, like they're working full-time and they're doing this part-time. So if you work full-time, you can also waive the internship requirement if it's, if you're working in the field already. And all of our classes are evening classes. Also, we have, you can actually complete the whole degree online if you want to, but usually most students kind of mix, like maybe they do some online classes, they do some in-person classes. And so it's really designed to be very flexible, and because a lot of our students are actually working while doing the degree. And so you can also complete it at your own pace. So the great thing about the BA MPA is, like all of these combined degrees, you can take 4 of your classes as an undergrad at the undergraduate tuition rate. In case we haven't already mentioned that already, it's worth mentioning. That's what makes it such a great value. So, if you have scholarships and such in the undergrad, you're basically paying whatever you're paying for undergrad. And then you just have to pay for the master's portion of it, which is, compared to any other MPA in the country, this is going to be like a slam dunk. It's like very affordable, and an MPA is a very lucrative credential to have. It will buy you higher earning power upon graduation. So the other thing is there's a capstone class, but there's no thesis project, or, so it's really about being very applied. I think those are the key points. So happy to take any questions about it. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Siddiqui.
Hi, everyone. So I am affiliated with the MIA, Masters in International Affairs program. And I should just share also that when I was graduating from college, I was also considering law school, and then I ended up in a Masters in International Affairs program. So I think I maybe share some overlapping decision making as you guys might be facing at this time. And I worked as a paralegal right after college, and that kind of convinced me that law school wasn't for me. Now, maybe law school is for you. But I would urge anybody who has any interest in the international sphere at all to maybe think about the international affairs program instead. I think I assumed that law school would open up the world of international law to me, but I realized that it's actually just like a handful of difficult to achieve jobs. And the international affairs program, I think, is better placed at linking you to international opportunities. Now, these international opportunities don't have to be abroad necessarily. Lots of people based in the United States, including in Albany, can work on international and global issues. And that's really what the MIA program is about. So I will, I guess, just highlight 2 or 3 aspects of the MIA program that I think are particularly interesting or relevant for you. One is, even though you see in front of you the electives that we offer, which are kind of the range from public management to diplomacy to homeland security to international development, you also are able to just decide your elective yourself, right? So there's this opportunity to create your own elective. You can just talk with your advisor and we can work together on this, which I think is a great opportunity. The second thing that I think is really great, and we've been working really hard on, is the capstone. So in the capstone project, what we do is we set up a student with what's basically a client, and then you work with the client on a semester-long project. So it's distinct from an internship, because with an internship, you kind of show up on a given day and you will get different projects, right, depending on the day. And some of that stuff might be administrative. The thing with a capstone is you have a semester-long project that you're working on mostly on your own time, but with frequent check-in with the capstone client. So just to give some examples of some capstones that we have currently in place a capstone with a very large NGO, Save the Children. We have in the past done capstones with USAID. We have capstones with various organizations related to Homeland Security. And then we also have very local based capstone opportunities. So new refugee rights organizations and so on. So it really just, runs the gambit of various types of opportunities, both local and international. And then I would say also that the MIA is really focused on building skills. So we're not a program that is necessarily geared towards getting you into a PhD, right? It's a terminal program. And so the goal is to give you the best skills that you can on the job market. If you want to go on to do a PhD, that's great. I did an international affairs program and then went on to do a PhD. So you could be like me. But if you don't want to be like me, then we also provide you the skills. And by that, I mean that we have courses that kind of focus on how to write memos. So I'm teaching a class right now is on international development. And one of the assignments that I give my students is to write like a 6-page memo summarizing like a particular conflict-ridden country. And the idea is like, if people go work in the policy world, they should know how to be succinct, even if they keep the nuance, right? Like how to get information drilled down into just a few pages. We do offer 2 stats courses. These are mandatory. I was an English major in college, so I was very scared of statistics, and now I teach statistics. So I always tell my students that I can do it, you can do it. And I think I've heard a lot of feedback from students that the courses that they took in this program were actually very effective and helpful in getting them jobs and internships in the future, because people really need skills in Excel and others at the job market. And so again, like the focus is both on substance, but also just on tangible things that can get you opportunities in the job market. And then the last thing I would mention is that we've had really great success in having students get like scholarships, including the Boren Scholarship, which sends students abroad. So we had a student who went to Indonesia for a few months, right, through a scholarship when he was a second-year student. And then I think it was Turkey as well. So so again, it's like a great way if you have any interest in international affairs at all. I would really highly recommend that you think about this. And happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. So tons of information. I'll stop sharing just for a second. So as you can see, I think the great thing about the sort of diversity of the programs is you can tell there's a common theme. There's, you want to be in advocacy and policy and politics, and those things kind of all run through each of these things, but there's a really practical application piece to the MIA and the MPA, and a little bit more of a research focus in the MA in CJ and POS. So you have kind of figuring out what direction you want to go to and come from, and all of those things you can sort of decide based on, what our faculty have said, of which, am I more of an applied person? Do I want to like jump in and get my hands dirty, or am I interested a little bit more of the theoretical and the research piece? And I think, students sort of know that about themselves as they apply, but I think the important thing too is to, keep an open mind. I think for students who, particularly if you're doing the combined program, you want to pick the right one because you are accelerating it. But so if you're not sure, there's nothing that commits you to the combined program either. So if you apply and you get it and you're like, I think I may want to switch or do something else, that's okay too. But you've got such great options. And so at this point, it's sort of just up to you to sort of figure out what's the direction I want to go. So so I want to talk a little bit about the process of the combined degree program, but I do want to open it up. Are there any questions at this point for any of our faculty or advisors about programs, careers, that kind of stuff? You're welcome to just unmute and ask away, or put it in the chat if you're interested, if you want to. So I'll just give you a second to think if there's any questions. If not, we can kind of keep going and talk a little bit about the combined process. All right, so then we will I will go back to share my screen to show you. So a little bit about the combined degree. So as Dr. Fox mentioned, there's some really great benefits to the combined degree. And the first one is, yes, you accelerate the program, typically by one full semester, depending on how you sort of structure your classes. But so the MIA, the MPA are traditionally 2 full years as a full-time student. The MAs can be a year and a half. It just sort of depends on how many credits you're taking each semester. But typically you're going to take 1 full semester off the total of your program, is sort of typically how it goes. So you will start graduate courses as a senior if you're on sort of a traditional 4-year plan. That's the other part, is we know students sometimes graduate early. You're doing a 3-year plan. We can talk about all of those things. All of those things can play into the combined degree program. So for intents and purposes, we'll sort of stick with the 4-year plan, but we can talk if you're in a sort of a different situation. But so if you're sort of in a traditional, junior year, you're thinking about graduate school, we really recommend students start thinking about it as early in your junior year, but certainly around this time is always good to think, okay, maybe I want to start thinking about applying to the combined degree program, because you can do that by, for the MPA, the MIA, and the MA in political science, those you actually apply for spring of junior year. The criminal justice master's is a little bit later in the summer. So as you can see by the deadlines here, spring, we also take spring students. So if any of you are sophomores, or if you're going to be a senior and make your decision too late, you're like, oh, I wanted to do this, you can still actually squeeze it in your last semester, your senior year, because you can take up to 12 credits of graduate level work as an undergraduate. That typically translates to 3 to 4 classes, a full semester's worth of coursework. And you don't have to take all 12 credits. I think that's the other thing too. Don't feel like you have to pack in 12 credits. If you feel like there are other courses you're taking, if there's other things that you're doing an internship and you're like, gosh, I don't know, that's okay too. But you can take up to that many. So you can actually, you have a little bit of flexibility to take up to a full semester's worth of courses in 12 credits. And as Dr. Fox mentioned, you get these at the undergraduate tuition rate. Some of you may know this, but some of you may not, is that the undergraduate tuition rate's about half the graduate tuition rate. So you're saving 50% on tuition. So it's a really sort of bonus scholarship almost built in by taking graduate courses as an undergrad student. So a really nice benefit there. And so there are some requirements, of course, because and certainly faculty jump in if there are other things that, that are sort of skill sets you think students can bring. I can certainly speak to the academic profile, which is a minimum of a 3.2 overall GPA. And for the MPA and the MIA, as we talked about, quantitative skills are something that we want you to have kind of a little bit of a background in to really prepare you. So we do have 2 quantitative course requirement for those 2 master's programs. And that can be, most students take statistics like PAD 316, and Rockefeller is a really popular one. And then like microeconomics tends to be very popular. Those are the kinds of courses, because those are the kinds of skills you're going to use most typically in these programs. But I think also, and if either Dr. Siddiqui or Dr. Fox want to talk at all about the quant part, although I think Nilüfer, you said it perfectly that you're an English major and you're like, hey, I teach statistics now. I think that's like the perfect story to tell, because I think a lot of students come in intimidated being like, but I'm a political science major and I didn't really take quant, and we have the beauty of the MIA and the MPA, probably more so than the other masters, is that we have students coming from literally every major. I mean, we have a bio major, a theater major, an English major, psychology, communication. Students come from all walks for those masters. So some of them haven't taken much in the quantitative space. And so we don't want that to discourage you, because you're going to get the resources that you need. Our stats courses are taught from a social scientist perspective. It's a little bit different than taking it through a traditional, math department. So there are some great things about the quant piece that, you'll actually surprise yourself probably if you're nervous at all about that. But that's why we want you as an undergrad to take those 2 quant courses, because it's going to give you a really good background to then jump into the graduate level stuff. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to add to that.
I'll just say that I also was terrified of statistics as an undergrad, and that I also now teach statistics. I sometimes teach PAD 505, which is our statistics class, and do statistics for a living. So yes, you can overcome it. And that even if you're not in our, if students in our public policy and management major are required to take 316, which is our undergraduate statistics class, but even if you're not, I would encourage anyone to take it. And definitely if you are thinking about applying to the BA MPA or the BA MIA, it's an accessible class for people, who maybe are not as statistically inclined.
If I could just add to that too, I think the fact that, people like Dr. Fox and myself aren't necessarily the type of people who are going to be like very gung-ho about stats being the solution to everything, is like we do understand how different methods are useful and how people come to this with different backgrounds. And so I think you're going to find that, at least my experience with my students is that they're pleasantly surprised by how stats is actually interesting and useful and can be applied to various aspects of their life. And I would say at least a quarter of them pursue it more. Like they'll take extra courses in quant, or they'll choose a capstone that has a quantitative component. And I'm always surprised by this, but I think it's becoming increasingly the case that we're seeing this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so you can do, the quant option for political science as well. But then another thing that just is worth keeping in mind is if you're sort of torn between options, you can also take classes across Rockefeller. So if, for instance, you're really interested in the MPA, but you want, some of the other, so a lot of classes are just cross-listed already, but you could take classes in the MIA, or if you're in political science, but you think you want to be a little bit more applied than some because again, the master's in political science kind of accommodates so many different possibilities. You could take still some classes in the MPA or in the MIA course, or in criminal justice as well, to fill out some of your specific interests. So you don't have to feel constrained to one or the other. If you're finding these fine distinctions to be paralyzing, you're not limited. And students do sometimes switch. You may have to sort of go through a reapplication process, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world.
And I don't think it's ever a bad thing to have the quant, have the stats. Doing research, it's always, oftentimes you're going to end up using some of those skills anyway, no matter what kind of direction you go. So thank you. That's all super helpful. Any questions that the students have? Anything Zahara, Stacy wants to throw out in terms of advising these students and sort of how typically it has worked for your experience in advising them, and what sort of worked well for students as they enter the combined degree?
I know, sometimes when I talk to students, they just have questions about recommendations, because a lot of times by the time they apply, especially for CRJ, they're just getting into the major. So it's difficult to find faculty just because they haven't taken that many CRJ classes yet. So I think just being able to find letters of recommendation, who to ask, does it, some of the questions, does it matter if the course was in my sophomore year? So typically recommendations, we also tell them that they can ask their TAs, because in our intro courses, like 201, 202, and 203, they had TAs for those courses. So you can ask the TAs, since that class was a lot smaller. You had about 30 students in that class. So that can be an option. A lot of students ask about the GREs. Those are waived for CRJ, so they don't need to do the GREs. And I think just wanting to know about when they'll get information about being accepted and when they can register for the grad courses. I know criminal justice, we do rolling admissions, so I know every couple weeks they check the application status. So you'll hear back within a couple weeks of your application. They don't wait until August 1st to let you know about the decision. So you will hear back prior to the August 1st date. If you submit your application, say in June, you will hear back if you're accepted or not.
That's a good point too. With the MPA and the MIA and the MA in political science, we recommend May 1st as a deadline. And similarly, it's about 2 weeks before you get a decision. So we do make a decision really quickly, because we want you at that point. It's May, you can go and change your schedule and talk to your advisor and still be good to go for the fall with plenty of time. So so even though we have a little bit more of a structured deadline, there is some flexibility there. May 1st is sort of what we really recommend. If you're a little bit later than that, that's okay. It's more just to give you as much information as early in the process as we can. And to, as to Stacy said, I didn't mention earlier, the GRE is not required for any of the programs, so that's not something you have to worry about either. So you're really just as on this slide, your transcripts. I think I was using this for another campus. Yours aren't going to be unofficial because your students here, so yours will be official. But the 2 letters of recommendation, I think Stacy made a really good point, because you really do want to get recommendations from people who can speak to your ability to be successful in graduate school. So, you know, a teaching assistant, an adjunct, anybody that you've made a connection with academically, hopefully who has taught you, can speak to that based on your performance in the classroom. And then of course your resume. And a personal statement is something that you don't have to know sort of what your entire life is going to look like from a personal statement based on this master's degree. It's more about, what are some of your motivations? Why does public service interest you? You know, maybe there's a story you had in your life as a child where you felt negatively affected by a policy, or your parents were negatively affected by something, you know, that you felt that's unjust, that's not right, this is something I'm passionate about. Those are the kinds of things that we look for in a personal statement. You know, and maybe there are some questions you really want to answer, or some questions you really want to ask. And those are the kinds of things we're looking for in the personal statement. So it's a fairly straightforward application process. And certainly if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to Stacy, to Zahar, and we're always happy to do that. But Zahar, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I know some of you mentioned that you're not sure, just kind of figuring it out. So I would encourage you all to email the folks who are on this call, or some of the graduate students, and ask them why they chose to pursue a particular program or not. I think that'll be really helpful to kind of give you a little bit more navigation. While Jacqueline said that you can change your mind, it's not like a written in stone, but it's also useful to kind of push yourself into a particular path. And by having an opportunity to talk to them, you might inspire you. You might hear something more that you heard in this particular talk, when you kind of share your personal interests, and that could help you figuring out which program to go on forward with.
Great, thank you so much. Stacy, yeah, go ahead.
One last thing.
Yeah.
I just want to, 12 credits is the maximum. Because I have a lot of students that they try to take over the 12 credits. So just kind of a warning on that. By the time you get to that 13th credit, they charge you graduate tuition, even if you're still an undergrad. So you want to remain at those 12 credits, because even if you are taking grad courses and undergrad courses, you're going to be paying grad tuition. So I just want to point that out for the students.
Yeah, it's very explicit, so you want to make sure you read the fine print on that. Any questions? you know, I'd love to hear from the students if there's anything that you want to hear more about. I know since we did have a few that were thinking about law school, if anybody wants to address in terms of, you know, specific why is an MPA better than law school? Or sort of things that you can speak to in terms of what some of the good alternatives are or why. And I think a couple of you mentioned it in terms of job market's not exactly the most reliable in law school, coming out of law school. And it's a lot of time and a lot of money. And so I think with degrees like this, whether more practical based or more research based, you've got a lot of really great career options, many of which do some of the sort of essential things a lawyer can do. You can work in advocacy and immigration and helping refugees and doing sort of some of these things without actually having a law degree. And we have a lot of alumni across the departments who do this really exciting, meaningful work and didn't go to law school, maybe changed their mind and thought that's what they wanted, but then were able to kind of discover something else. So if anybody wants, has anything sort of else to add for that too, please feel free.
Actually, I'm just going to say one thing. So I, for a number of years, ran our semester in Washington program for undergraduates, and I'm not doing it this year, but through that, I see a lot of students who are interested in politics and policy, and most come in, usually the majority, thinking they want to go to law school. Most have changed that position by the end of a semester of working in DC, interning in something public service oriented. And the reason is that many discover, partly because they're required to do these informational interviews with people in the sort of jobs that they want to have, that the sort of work that they want to do, as Jacqueline was just saying, can be done with a law degree or might be just as easily or better done with a different graduate degree. Law school will still be there, but especially given the specific economic benefit of doing a master's as a combined degree at UAlbany, where you're paying in-state tuition and you're also paying undergrad tuition for 4 of your classes, it can be a good way to figure out, is this degree what you need fully for your career? And for many of you, it will actually be the degree that actually best serves your career interests. Or is this something where you use this degree and then develop the expertise and other experience that you'll need to get into a better law school, to be able to afford the law school without taking everything out in loans, or to be able to get into another more specifically focused grad program later if your interests change. And what I mean by that is a lot of even master's programs won't consider students unless they have at least 4 or 5 years of work experience. And so this can enable you to level up the sort of job that you can get straight out of, college plus a year, basically. And then, use that to get a great position in the career track that you want. And then down the line, decide if there's something else that you want to do in terms of further educational options. So you don't really lose anything in the process. It's just, the financial efficiency of this is pretty hard to beat. So I don't want to stress that over much, but it is an issue just because of the added salary increment of having a graduate degree.
It's a much more real return on investment, I think, sometimes by doing a master's, and at least more immediate than perhaps a law degree. So, but there are, I know at least one of you mentioned a combined, we have an MA JD, we have an MPA JD. So, there are students who, I know I want to be a lawyer. It's what I want to do, but I also want to complement it with doing this master's degree. And that's great. I mean, there are really great benefits to doing the combined JD programs. There are, you want to make sure you speak with the folks at Albany Law. I'm happy to put you in touch with them because they do have very specific requirements, more so specific than I think we do even, and how you take their coursework and such. So, but there are really great benefits to that if you sort of know law school's your route, because I know for the JD MPA, at least, we have students who've done it and are like, wow, being a lawyer is great, but I also learned, like Dr. Fox was saying, really practical things like budgeting. Like that's a really big deal. Making financial decisions can be a really big part of what you do. And if you're a lawyer and you have an MPA or you have an MA and you have sort of this additional skill set that you wouldn't have had only as a JD, I think it really can really augment what you're doing in law school in a really meaningful way. So it certainly is something that for those of you sort of know, law school is the way to go. Awesome. It's a great way to keep to augment that. But at the same time, we're seeing that there's really great alternatives out there too. Any questions at this point? Any comments? Anything else anybody wants to share? Yeah, Dayanara.
I guess my biggest not concern, like toss up, I want to say, it is like my biggest thing. I recently attended like a seminar on nonprofit. I just really know that I want to go into the hands-on kind of area. So I know some you guys mentioned it before. a program is specifically altered to that, or it caters to it in a way. And I just was wondering how that worked. Like, I know a lot of these courses that we're taking, would that be like kind of field work, or I don't know how to word it.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the MPA, I mean, so there's an internship requirement. So, I mean, that is, I guess, field work. You could think of it that way. I mean, you're required to do the internship. The other classes, I mean, there are some that might involve some, like sometimes faculty bring in real world projects and have you do them in the classroom. There are some classes that do try to bring you out into the world. It kind of, it's a class by class basis in that sense, but the whole program is geared around being very applied and teaching you applied skills that you would then use in the workplace. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but just wanted to mention that.
Just to add to that, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so the MPA has a nonprofit management concentration. I will say also, which if that's your focus, that is an excellent field to go into. We also have some political science students who are taking selected classes from that because they have a specific interest, but maybe they're less practitioner oriented, or they're not. Sometimes they're just not sure what they want to do, but maybe they've done an internship with a nonprofit and that starts to appeal to them. And so, yeah, if you know that's what you want to do, the nonprofit management track within the MPA might be the best track for you, the best option. But know that there's still decisions.
I'll jump in and say that not everyone's aware of this as an undergrad, but criminal justice also has a joint degree program that you could segue into from the BA/MA, where you'd get a master's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in social welfare. We have some of our best students are in this program, and that involves a lot of field work, but you can customize what you do in that program to suit what your interests are. So for example, I was talking to a student today who is involved in basically working at a youth facility, and he's a counselor there and he's a teacher there, and he's getting both degrees, and the MSW can get you jobs that a master's degree can't get you if you're interested in those kinds of public service nonprofit positions. And if you have curiosity about that, anybody, feel free to email me and I'll follow up.
Hannah.
I kind of have a very specific question. I'm technically a year ahead, so I'm graduating after my third year, and I'm kind of like jam-packing credits in for the next like fall and spring. So if I wanted to start taking graduate courses early and like with the undergraduate tuition, would I basically have to spread it out and basically spread my semesters into a third semester, like from next year and go into next fall, I guess, or not next fall, but
yeah. So
like fall.
great question. I'm so glad you asked it, because I totally didn't mention that the courses that you take double count. So you're not taking 12 more classes, you're taking 12 that integrate into your program already. So
okay.
yes, I'm so sorry. I'm so glad you said that, because none of us mentioned it. So yeah, so these 12 credits actually will count for both your bachelor's degree and the master's degree. So you don't have to take more, you're taking the same number.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if
Yeah.
like I would have to, like, if I have a year left, then I'd have to spread it out into 3 semesters or not.
Right, yes, and that would be like, well, then what's the point? This is crazy. Absolutely. So yes, we've designed it such that you work with your advisor. The MPA is pretty standard in terms of what can switch in and out. It's pretty easy. Same with political science. I'm not as familiar. Stacey could probably speak to CJ a little bit, but like they're sort of designed that way to make sure that you can double count, so you don't need to be adding additional courses.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also add, though, did you want to? Well, I'll just, you might be saying the same thing I was going to say, but that, you know, you might want to just look at your overall trajectory and plan and think about whether, like, if you really want to do one of these combined degrees, it could make sense to do an extra semester, just so you don't have to sort of kill yourself to get done, you know, because basically you're just sort of, you know, easing into the graduate program anyway. And so maybe you have 2 more undergrad classes to finish up, and, you know, that spills into another semester, but then you take your graduate classes in that semester. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to do this. And so if you think you want to do one, you don't necessarily have to rush to get done with your undergrad.
Right, I agree with Ashley, Dr. Fox. I think also you need to kind of think through, maybe you want to take a one class, one semester and see how you feel about it, because graduate courses are significantly more challenging, so they demand a little bit more time of you. So if you're thinking about taking 18 or 19 credits a semester, with the graduate course, it may be much more difficult. So I would recommend talking to your advisor and looking at carefully. It's not to scare you. It's more like just more thinking it through in a positive way. What's the best way to approach it? And we had students who were taking all 4 classes one semester, and they were successful. Now, they will tell you that they found the semester to be extremely crushing and very difficult. They pass through it, but it's really depend on your need and want. But I certainly encourage you talking to an advisor and one of the folks on this call to see how best it fits into your plan and what is the benefit of such expedited way to graduate. Obviously, saving money is one way, but you also could potentially miss out on some of the opportunities or extended more internship that can be paid. You know, there's some fellowships that could be paid too, that are higher level that you might miss out on if you graduate too fast. So that could be possibilities too. But lots of options to open.
Thank you.
So the and like Zahar said, you can take, you know, one class and decide, but there's also summer courses, depends on the department, they vary. But the MPA, like pretty much all the core classes have an online version in the summer, you know, and so across the departments, there's usually a handful of summer classes too. So, you know, if you want to like stretch it a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to take 2 or 3 as a senior, and then I'll start right away and jump in the summer and take one. That's an option too, and that sort of still accelerates you a little bit, but doesn't quite overload you the same way. So there is a little bit of flexibility there. And one thing I'll mention too, if you're like, you know, I don't know if a combined degree is what I'm interested in, maybe I just want to graduate and do it the regular way. That's great too. You can apply to a traditional master's degree, but we also offer graduate certificate programs. And so what those are sort of a smaller credential than a master's degree. Same courses. So if you're interested in nonprofit, you're interested in public management, we have one in women in public policy. You know, there's sort of a way to get a little bit of an introduction to a master's degree, take some courses, learn a little bit about the field, learn a little bit about the program, and then jump into the master's degree. That's an option too. You know, so there's so many ways to do it. We love the combined degree because for students who know it's the direction they want to go, it's a great way to save time, save money, and get your career started. But we also don't want to push the combined degree program on students, because we don't want you to rush if unnecessarily, you know, and we don't want you to push through because you feel like you have to. So there are lots of other options. If you want to do it the more traditional way, look at a graduate certificate, figure out, you know, sort of do I want to go get a job and start it part-time? I mean, those are all options for students, and we want you to think about all of those things. The combined degree is just something we like to give students an option to have for those who sort of know the direction they want to go and are, you know, are excited to jump in and you know, and start thinking about that. So lots of options. Any last?
Can I just add one thing to that?
Go ahead.
Let me just add one, which is the certificate programs, the micro credentials that Jacqueline just mentioned. You can also do those along within your master's. So if you know that you want to work, for instance, in women in public policy or something about gender, you can do that to get that sort of note on your transcript that you have this specialization. You could do that with a combined degree program, or just with the master's, or just do that credential. So these are all reasons to talk to any of us or to your advisor and decide what fits best with your interests.
Yeah. So yes, great point for sure. So so I don't want to take up any more of anybody's time. If there aren't any last questions, please reach out to us anytime. Dr. Ward and Dr. Fox put their emails in there. If you're just not sure, talk to Stacy, talk to Zahar, come right to me. We'll put you in touch with the faculty, students, and alumni. I mean, that's one of the things I think we really pride ourselves on. We have an incredible alumni network who are always more than happy to talk to potential students about, like, what do you do for a living? How did you get there? Well, how did this degree prepare you? let us know. And we're more than happy to connect you. I know you guys have such great resources as undergrads through the Thinking Ahead course and all the different ways you guys have to connect with alumni and people in the field. But just to let you know, we're happy to continue those connections for you. So please stay in touch with us. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this evening. Thank you to our faculty, to Stacy, to Zahar, and thank you, students, and good luck with the rest of the semester. And like I said, stay in touch with us and let us know if there's anything else that we can help you with as you move forward. So have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.